Hi, and welcome back to the EPCC Chef Share series in conjunction with EPCC TV for YouTube and EPCC TV viewers. I'm Chef Rosser back with you again. This week we're going to be talking about cold emulsified sauces and we're going to make some mayonnaise and some aioli. So hope you enjoy the show. Remember to like, follow us, and make suggestions if there's something you'd like to see in the future. Hope you enjoy the show. Let's get to it. Okay, so the first thing we need to talk about when we are talking about cold emulsified sauces are the selection of ingredients. Now, these sauces are extremely versatile. We can get a lot of different flavors into them, but we have to start with our basic ingredients, right? So the first thing we're going to talk about is egg yolks. Now, the egg yolks are going to be what allows the emulsification of this sauce. And basically, emulsification means that the water-based molecules, which is going to be the acid, lemon juice, vinegar, whatever it may be, are going to bind to the oil molecules in a way that is not going to let them separate. So we're looking for a stable emulsion. So we're going to use egg yolks because they have a chemical in them known as lecithin. And lecithin is a coiled little protein that one end is positively charged, one end is negatively charged. So one end is naturally attracted to water bases, and the other end is naturally attracted to oil bases, and it will keep them in what is known as suspension if done correctly. So egg yolks and lecithin. That is for the base, and you can find 1,000 different recipes for mayonnaise, but unless it's a vegan recipe, it should start with egg yolks. The next thing we're going to look at is the acidification of this product, or the water base. And I have white wine vinegar here, and I'm also using lemon juice. Now I'm going to start with the white wine vinegar as kind of a baseline for the acidity, and we don't use too much of that, a teaspoon or two per egg yolk, all right? And then I finish with the lemon juice to add brightness, acidity, and balance. Okay, so the next base ingredient that we need to talk about are oils, all right, the fat that's going to go in here. Now I have an off-the-shelf extra virgin olive oil. Really, you don't want to use too much of this. Extra virgin olive oils tend to be very highly flavored. Unless you're looking for that flavor profile, what I like to do is blend a flavored olive oil, so a decent extra virgin, and then a good quality neutral oil. So here I have avocado oil. So I'm going to do about 4 parts avocado oil, or 3 parts avocado oil to 1 part extra virgin, just to get a nice balance in that. And that is what's going to provide thickness and that creamy structure to a mayonnaise or an aioli. Next, we're going to talk about our seasoning ingredients. So I've got kosher salt, I've got white pepper, black pepper, a little paprika. You can basically put anything in there that you want, but as far as dry spice, that's what I've got. We're going to be making a really nice black garlic aioli today. Aiolis are traditionally made with fresh or roasted garlic. I'm going to use a little black garlic, and black garlic is almost like a ferment. It is cooked at 140 degrees for about 6 weeks in an airtight vessel, and you get this beautiful, rich, dark garlic out of it with all kinds of wonderful flavors to it, good umami to that. All right. Garlic also has lecithin in it, so it will aid in emulsification. The next one I'm going to talk about is mustard, and this is just a standard off-the-shelf Dijon mustard. Mustard has a significant amount of lecithin in it too, so it will aid in emulsification. And when talking about emulsification, going back to our egg yolks, one thing that we need to remember is a bit of a standard ratio. Now, 1 large egg yolk will emulsify between 4 and 6 ounces of oil, right? So just when doing your measurements for an aioli or a mayonnaise, 1 large egg yolk, 4 to 6 ounces of oil. If you get a little skittish on it, back off on the amount of oil that you're using, and we'll look at the consistency of these emulsions shortly, okay? So that's Dijon mustard. Also adds some brightness, a little bit of spice and heat to it as well. Next, we're going to talk about our aromatic ingredients. So the first thing I have here is anchovies. And anchovies are not a very popular product in the kitchens these days. Me personally, I love anchovies as long as they're used correctly. And I'm going to show you really quickly how to use anchovies correctly. So I'm going to pull a couple of these fillets out, and I will be making a batch with this. And what I do is I set them in a strainer and just dip them in slightly warm water just to rinse them off. And you don't want this water hot, just about room temperature tap water. And you rinse them off like that, and it's going to get some of the salinity and some of the oil off of them and make them dissolve much easier. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to set it aside to use in the aioli in just a little bit. So we'll come back to that. Anchovies are a wonderful ingredient. They bring a lot of really distinct flavor. If you rinse them, they're not too fishy, not too oily, not too salty. They're actually a perfect ingredient. Other aromatic ingredients that we have is I have some ground or pureed chipotles in adobo here. We'll take our standard mayonnaise and we'll convert that into a chipotle mayonnaise. I have some confit shallot, and that's just shallots that are cooked for a long, slow period of time in olive oil and herbs. And then I just have a little bit of chopped fresh parsley. So pretty simple array of ingredients. You can use, like I said, whatever you like to put these together and get whatever flavor profiles you need out of this. So we'll get started in just a minute. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a standard mayonnaise, French style. We'll convert that into a chipotle mayonnaise, and then we're going to take a look at a couple of aiolis. We'll be right back. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with that basic French mayonnaise. So the first thing I'm going to do is get a couple of egg yolks into my bowl. And for this setup here, I have a very heavy stainless steel mixing bowl, and I take a damp towel and I make a little, like a donut shape out of it, just to hold that steady so I don't have, so my bowl's not sliding all over the counter. Nice heavy bowl. I'm going to use a balloon whip, and this balloon whip has really fine wires in it, so it's going to break up and disperse that oil nicely, just like I like. So I've got a couple of egg yolks. I'm going to get some Dijon mustard in there, and I want about at least a tablespoon in there to give it that really nice, bright flavor that I'm looking for. I'm going to get a little bit of salt, and I like white or black pepper for this objective. I want to see the black specks in there. I'm going to get a little bit of cayenne in there, or paprika. I like the little bit of color that it gives and some earthiness. And my oil, or my vinegar. This is white wine vinegar. I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons. There we go. Now before I start adding the oil, what I want to do is whisk everything together till it's light and frothy in here. And you can see how the spices get dispersed. The egg yolk starts weeping out and combining with the mustard, break those egg yolks up. And we just want to whisk this nicely until it starts to get a little foamy look to it. We're going to look for it to change color, get a little bit lighter and a little bit foamier. All right, so there we are. So that's ready to go. We have a little bit of foaming. It's nice and light and frothy, which is exactly what we're looking for. I'm going to start putting my oil in. So when we're adding the oil, we want to start very slowly. And I like to use a back and forth, just side to side motion with the whisk. And then every once in a while come around and get everything in. And drizzle my oil directly into the whisk because it's going back and forth. Start very slowly. Add a few drops at a time. I'm going to get this incorporated and look for that base liquid to start thickening up before I add more. go. Now we're starting to get a little thickening on there. Add a little more. And really what I'm trying to do is break that oil up into small, tiny droplets so that it emulsifies correctly, so that the lecithin can hold on to it and it doesn't break out. So you see how the consistency of that base liquid is getting nice and thick? And we're just going to continue to do that. And the more oil we add, the thicker this is going to get. And now we can add it a little bit faster because we've started the emulsification process, and the oil goes in much easier after that. And we can do this with a hand mixer or a food processor or a blender, but knowing how to do these items by hand is really important because you know what to look for from the consistency. You can stop and taste it if you like and get a better sense of what you're doing. So you see how this is getting nice and thick? I've got more than half of my oil in, and for the 2 egg yolks, I did 10 ounces of oil because they were just slightly smaller egg yolks. So I want to make sure that I don't put too much oil in and run the risk of breaking this product. Come and get everything off the sides of the bowl. You see how that's getting nice and thick? So we're just going to continue streaming that oil in, breaking it up. Set this down for a moment and just get everything together. And you see how nice and thick that's getting? We'll get our last little bit of oil in there and get that finished. Set that over here. And it doesn't get much easier than that as far as making a cold sauce. This will keep in the refrigerator for about a week or so. For home use, I always suggest that you get pasteurized eggs, just because you don't want to run the risk of having a salmonella contamination. So Eggland's Best. I think there's some other eggs out there. You can find whole pasteurized eggs, and there's plenty of vegan recipes out there too that use things like tahini puree as a base. There's plenty of recipes out there. So please try making this. It's about as easy as it gets, and way better than store-bought. So let's go ahead and taste this now and see if we need to make any adjustments on seasoning. It's really nice and bright and acidic, but it's also got that creamy, silky texture from the oil. There's and just the right amount of spice. This is a very nice mayonnaise. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to convert this into a chipotle mayo. So we can add a little chopped cilantro, we can add lime juice, we can do anything we want to make this into what it is we want. I have here just a little chopped parsley, and I'm not going to put too much of it in. I just want a little bit in there for color. And then I'm going to get some of this pureed chipotles en adobo in there. And I'm not going to add too much to start. About a teaspoon and a half to a tablespoon, depending on what your taste is. And because that chipotles en adobo is so nice and thick and pureed already, you just get this really beautiful conversion into a nice chipotle mayonnaise. Very simple. It's just such a beautiful presentation. This would be great on a sandwich with barbecue. This is awesome. Really, you could put it on a potato salad. This would be amazing. All right, so I'm going to get this out of the way, and then we're going to come back and make a couple of aiolis, one with anchovies and one with black garlic. We'll be back. All right, the next objective we're going to take care of is we're going to use this black garlic to make an aioli. So what's the difference between a mayonnaise and an aioli? Typically nothing. And we're going to use, except for the ingredients. So a traditional aioli usually has garlic in it. And we use fresh raw garlic in an aioli. But I'm going to do this one with some black garlic that I have here. And if you've never experienced black garlic, it really is a treat. It's got this really deep, intense, earthy flavor, some nice sweetness, some great umami to it. So we are going to play a little bit with a couple cloves of black garlic. This can be a little difficult to find, but if you can, or you can make it at home, it's a great ingredient to use. So the first thing I'm going to do with this black garlic is I'm going to get a couple of cloves on my cutting board, and I'm just going to use the back of a fork to mash them out, just to get that, just to break them up. And they really do mash easily. It's almost like melted chocolate at this point. So we're going to get a little bit of that in there, and I'm only going to use 3 cloves. Because this stuff is very potent. I'm going to get that in there. I want to make sure I save every bit of that for my recipe. All right, and again, we're going to do 2 egg yolks. We're going to get our acid in there, and like I said, I start with the white wine vinegar, about 2 teaspoons in there. Not too much. You don't want this to be too acidic. I'm going to get a little bit of salt. You want about half a teaspoon in there. And for this one, I'm going to use white pepper. And white pepper is pretty potent, so be careful when adding it. You can really easily overdo it. So I'm going to get about a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper in there. I'm going to get a little bit of parsley in there for color. And I'm not going to add the mustard to this because, 1, it's an aioli, and 2, I've got the emulsifying power of the black garlic in there. So again, we're going to start getting this whisked up. We want to look for it to get a little light, a little frothy, a little foamy, and that garlic will continue to break up as we do the mixing on this. Just looking for it to get a little light, a little frothy, and thicken up just slightly before we start adding our oil in. And help break up that garlic just a little further, all right? So start with my side-to-side motion with my whisk, a few drops of oil in at a time. And now we can start seeing the complexion of that aioli change. It starts looking a little thicker, a little fluffier, and that's exactly what we're looking for before we start streaming in our oil. And when you're doing the side-to-side motion, make sure you go all the way up the sides. All right, I'm going to set this down for a second and just make sure I get all of that oil incorporated so I don't break this product. If you do break a mayonnaise or an aioli, what you can do in order to fix it is you can get an extra egg yolk, whisk it until it's light and fluffy, and then add the broken aioli to it in small amounts to re-emulsify. Now I can start streaming my oil in a little bit faster, just making sure that I'm getting it all incorporated. So at this point I'm doing more of a continuous stream because I'm seeing that the emulsion is picking up that oil and holding on to it. Doesn't look like it wants to break out. And you can see that the complexion is getting paler and the consistency is getting thicker. It's exactly what we're looking for. the last little bit of our oil in there. And that's it. Get everything mixed in. And there we have a beautiful black garlic aioli. Now this is going to have a lot of umami to it, which is that kind of indefinable savory characteristic that you get out of things like mushrooms, garlic, and black garlic. Definitely soy sauce has a lot of umami to it. So let's go ahead and taste this. I'm going to add just a little bit of lemon juice to brighten it up a touch. That black garlic is very earthy with kind of dark notes to it. So I want to lighten that up, and you see what that lemon juice does? It actually helps stabilize it more at this point as far as the emulsification process. So we have a nice, beautiful, thick black garlic aioli there. It's nice and light and pale, and got a great consistency to it, and just a wonderful flavor. Next, we're going to make an anchovy and caper aioli. All right, welcome back, and we are going to next take a look at an anchovy aioli with capers in it. So what we're looking for is, in this flavor profile, is something kind of bright, Mediterranean, briny. I can use, I could use Kalamata olives, really anything I want. But again, we're gonna start with our egg yolks. And I'm gonna get 3 egg yolks into this one. I wanna show you guys that these egg yolks, how they help emulsify. This is gonna be a nice, thick, tight aioli. The next thing I'm gonna do is that confit shallot. I minced that up. I'm going to get that in there. I have some capers, which are a berry of an evergreen bush. These are the flowering berries. I've got about a tablespoon of those. And then I'm going to get about 3 of my rinsed anchovy fillets in there. And what I want to do, first of all, and I'm going to add lemon juice to this rather than wine vinegar because I want that kind of bright Mediterranean flavor profile, somewhat briny. So 2 teaspoons of that, definitely some parsley. You get some kosher salt in there. No, you want to be careful with this because those anchovies tend to be salty, so just a pinch of kosher salt, black pepper, and go ahead and start making your puree. Now I want to use the whisk to try to break up some of those capers. I could mash them on the cutting board first, but I don't mind having large chunks of the capers in the mix just to kind of make it interesting texturally. And the anchovies, because they were rinsed, they break up fairly easily, but I could easily puree these or mash them on the cutting board. At this point, it's not that big of a deal. Really what I want to show you is more of the process. So depending on what you want to see, if you want a nice smooth aioli, puree those down, mince them, smash them with the side of your chef knife on the cutting board, whatever you want to do. And so now we see that the egg yolk getting pale, and it's holding a little bit of foam to it. All right, so we're ready to start with our oil. Pretty simple process there, and then we'll adjust the seasonings at the end. So I got my side-to-side motion again, pouring my oil through my whisk, getting that first addition in, and looking for this to thicken up just slightly, just enough to know that I'm holding that emulsion. And there it goes. And we'll get some more in there. And I did put a little bit more extra virgin olive oil in the mixture for this because I do want those Mediterranean flavor profiles like extra virgin olive oil to be forward. I really want that flavor up in the front. So I added a little bit more of that. And so you see how that's thickening up nicely. And now I can just do that continuous stream. Get the rest of that in there. And this kind of sauce would be a wonderful addition to something like grilled asparagus or steamed artichoke. This would be an amazing sauce to pair with something like that. Get the rest of that in there. There we go. And get everything brought together nicely. Come up and get everything off of the sides. And you see the texture of that is nice and chunky. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. Because I want it to be not only an amazing tasting aioli, but I want this to have some texture and some contrast between that really beautiful, smooth, creamy, fatty aioli base and those wonderful kind of briny ingredients, all right? So I'm gonna pull this down. We're gonna give it a taste. We're gonna make any adjustments we need to as far as flavoring. And that is amazing. That extra virgin olive oil is right up in the front with the lemon juice. You've got that beautiful acidity from the capers, the parsley, the shallots. It's just really a nice sauce. And those anchovies are definitely the backbone of this sauce. So I hope you enjoyed this segment. Again, please like us, follow us, and we'd love to hear your suggestions for future episodes. Thanks for joining us again on EPCC Chef Share with El Paso Community College Culinary Arts and EPCC TV.